a link to a recording, we will make those available as well. If you hear something that you want to share with staff or peers or colleagues, we'll be glad to help you out in that way. Okay, so on behalf of Sauk Valley Community College and the Regional Office of Education 47, I want to say thanks for being here. Most of you, this is a non-attendance day, and so we're excited to have you with us when you could be doing a lot of other things. So thank you for that. We're very appreciative. We were just having this discussion earlier, if this is year 5 or 6 or I don't know, something, but it's at least our 5th year. And we've been excited to see how this work and this partnership has really grown. And many of you have been with us on that journey. And if you are new, welcome, welcome. It's quite a ride, let me just say that. All right, please make sure that you follow the chat there. We need you all to sign in so that you can get credit for PD, you can get stipend credit, so make sure that you do that. There will be an updated agenda in the chat as well. Times are the same, but we've had on our student panel, we've had some changes with students who will be participating. So we want to make sure that they get credit and that you know who they are. So make sure that you check that out as well. Our presenter, Tom Toney, has also asked that if you can or are interested, that you print off the bounce game that is also linked in the chat. If you don't have access to a printer or don't want to take the time to do that, maybe you're downstairs and it's upstairs, that's fine as well. Tom's going to walk us through that online as well. Okay, this would be about the time where I tell you where the bathrooms are at Sauk. I can, but I don't think they're going to be important to you today. So you'll have to take care of that on your own. For Zoom, we all have expectations, right? So here's what we'd like for you to do today. Make sure that you stay muted unless you have something that, that you want to share. This is certainly going to become interactive as we move through the morning. And so make sure you know where your mute is. We learned this morning, Bob shared that you can hit your space bar and unmute. You can unmute in the dots on your screen. You can unmute in your bottom left-hand corner. Use the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat as we go through. Please keep your camera on if possible. We know that some people have bandwidth issues and that won't work, but we do really appreciate having an audience, some faces to look at. And so if you can keep your camera on, we appreciate that. We will have you choose your own breakout room when we go to those a little bit later this morning. If you have updated your Zoom account, you will be able to choose your own breakout room. If that has not happened and you can't choose your breakout room, don't panic. Don't think you have to do it at this very moment. Of course you can, but we will go ahead and place you in a breakout. So we'll take care of you and cover you there. Okay, I think those are all the in-house issues and details that we need to cover right now. We're still having some folks who are joining us, so we're excited about that. But I'm going to turn this over now to Stacy Dingus. She's excuse me, the digital learning and teaching and digital learning and media specialist. Is that right? Make sure I get that right. For ROE 47, she's got some exciting things to share regarding the Pathways website and some social media pieces.
Thank you, Janice. Good morning, everybody. See some familiar faces on here, so hope we're all staying warm. I'm excited to share with you that we have a new look for our ROE website. You can find that at www.roe47.org. You can find the new Pathways website by clicking on the Career Pathways tab at the top right of your screen on the home page, or you can scroll down to the Programs and Outreach Services portion of the home page and click on that box that also displays our Pathway logo. We will continue to update this website, so make sure that you're checking back at it for recent current information on the Pathways work that we're doing. You can also find up-to-date Pathway information by liking and following our Facebook page, which you can find us at Regional Office of Education 47, and we tend to post our pathway information on Wednesdays, so look out for that. And don't forget today to include today's summit in your Twitter handle at #Pathways2021. I'll pop all of those into the chat right now so that you can make sure to spread the word about the important work that we're doing with college and career readiness in our local communities. Thanks, Janice.
Of course. Thank you, Stacy. All right. Now the time has come to pass this over to my, as Angie always refers to me as her partner in crime. I'm just going to say that Angie, oh gosh, I should have thought of a better handle for you. Angie's been a great partner with ROE 47 throughout our process and helping us to connect to our high school and elementary folks, and to make that transition from pre-K 12 to SOC much more smooth and much more successful for our students. So we're very grateful for that partnership. So I want to introduce to you Angie Garza, the Director of Professional Learning at ROE 47.
Thanks, Janice. Good morning, everybody. It is so great to see all of you here on a fine Monday morning, and what a testament to how important this work is. So as we're getting started this morning, what a celebration, the fact that we've been doing this for over 5 years. And in fact, our partnership with Sauk Valley Community College has gone on even longer than that. But this is our work. This is our passion. This is our mission and vision. This idea of collective impact and bringing everyone together to not only make a difference with our students, but also with our families and with our communities. So this work is so important to our communities as we look to grow and diversify our workforce and ensure that we are growing our local economies as well. And what a testament, if we look at all of the faces on our Brady Bunch screen right now, we see that diversity kind of represented here. And we've tried to make that the purpose and the vision for all of the summits that we've had over the last 5 years. If you remember, we've had former university presidents, we've had legislators, we've had business owners and chamber members, as well as educators from our K-12 and post-secondary institutions. And even as I look at the screen today, I see that diversity represented. So I'm just going to call out a few people that I see. We have Bob Sondergraf with us, our regional superintendent of schools, as well as, hi Bob, as well as Chris Tennyson, our assistant regional superintendent of schools. We have Ginger Reynolds here from the P20 Center. So happy to see her here. From Ed Systems Center. We also have with us Jason Klein and Amy Jo Clemens, longtime friends and members of the P20 Center out of NIU. Christina Valentine from the Illinois State Board of Education is joining us this morning. We also I see John Mandrell. Hi, John, from Sauk Valley Community College, Vice President. John Heiser. Hi, John. He is one of our FK representatives, and we're doing some work with us on our agriculture pathway. So we have, I'm probably missing some folks, but this is important work. And as we kind of talk about pathways, we are redefining what our educational systems look like to better engage our students and prepare them for their own personal futures. And so we want to thank you so much for joining us in this journey and this important work. And before I turn it back over to Janice, I just want to also highlight and celebrate some of our team members who have been working really hard to make this day and this work possible. So from our team joining us here this morning, we have Gail Wright, Heather Waninger, Marcia Minton, Stacy Dingus, and Miss Janice, of course. And then we are sad that one of our pathway navigators, Shannon McDonald, is not able to join us this morning. She's feeling a little under the weather this morning, but she also has been working very hard to make all of this work possible. So we're in for a great morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Angie, it's time to have our first giveaway.
Sounds good.
So we have some things to share with you, to give to you, not to loan, but to put into your hands. Some resources shared with us this morning by our keynote presenter, Tom Toney, which we're going to give away a little bit later, and some SOC and career pathway swag as well. So Angie, here's our first giveaway. Who gets it?
It is very exciting. So I am going to ask Heather Waniger to give me a number 1 through 67. Oh, you have to unmute, Heather.
I tried using the spacebar trick and it didn't work for me. 46. 46.
46. So if Trisha McKendry is on the call, congratulations. You are the winner of our first giveaway. So that is Trisha McKendry.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Stay tuned because there are more and better things coming your way as giveaways. Just one more time before we get started, make sure that you sign in the chat. Make sure that you have access to both the Pathfinder workbook and the bounce game that have been linked into the chat as well. Tom is going to use those here momentarily. There should be an updated agenda. All of those things will be coming in your way. But now it's time to move on. And you know, when we talk about the summit and this work every year, it's like, oh, we've got to plan another summit. What are we going to do that's going to be exciting to folks and that will really be helpful? Because the last thing that we want to do is have you join us for a morning and leave and go, well, that was a waste of my morning. Nobody has time for that. Nobody has energy for that. And so we are very excited to share our screen time this morning with Tom Toney, author, speaker, DISC certified leadership coach, founder of the Current Family. Let's see, it's a nonprofit that he directs for empowering students and families with resources for personal growth and development. Tom developed the Quest student leadership system he's been using for over the past 20 years. He's going to share some of that curriculum with us today. And that is used by organizations and schools around the country to empower students for character growth, self-expectation, and leadership. Tom is a corporate coach, a nonprofit, and educational leader, and he has developed a CAB University model that has strategies for helping folks work through change and develop themselves and their own leadership and character through that university model. So he and his wife and their 3 children come from Marion, Ohio, and we are very excited to welcome Tom Toney to our Zoom and Summit 2021 today. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Janice, very much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all today. I'm glad that you're warm. Here in Marion, Ohio, we have very, very cold temperatures and a ton of snow coming in again. So hopefully everyone's warm and cozy this morning. It's so good to be with you all. I'm honored to be with you. You know, we share a common passion, and that passion is seeing the next generation experience the fullness of who they are. And so it's an honor today to spend some time with you, talking about the career pathway especially, and unpacking some principles that I hope will help you all. I want to encourage you as we go along. I know you're going to have questions, you're going to have thoughts. We would love to hear those questions and those thoughts. If you could just throw those into the chat. I'm going to try to, if I can, leave some time at the end, possibly for some Q&A. If we're not able to do that in our brief time together, we have about 45 minutes here together this morning, then we will certainly get back to you directly with any questions that you send to us via the chat. And just to say quickly, I don't know about you, but I'm really kind of glad that we have this technology. Otherwise, we would not be able to spend this valuable time together today. And looking forward to what we can come up with out of this session, this talk together. And we are going to be a little interactive. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of Zoom magic if I can, if you'll bear with me. I will be looking for some responses on occasion throughout our conversation. So I'll kind of walk you through that as we go through it. But I want to begin this morning by kind of jumping into an exercise that we love to do both corporately with our corporate clients, but also with students that we lead. It's an exercise called the Pathfinder. Janice has mentioned it a few times today. And I'd like for you to go ahead and find that if you could. If you printed it, grab it, put it in front of you. If you did not, I will share it on our screen so we can kind of walk through it. And let's kind of figure that out a little bit as we go here. But this will kind of be an important foundation for our conversation today. So really excited to be with you all. And Janice and Angie, thank you for this opportunity. Really looking forward to what we're going to discover together here today. As you're kind of getting that Pathfinder tool ready, as we start to go into that, I want to kind of bring a little bit of definition to my talk with you today. We're going to explore pathways. And I recognize that the work that you do is designed to help empower those who work with students to build a career pathway. And I want to kind of just spend a few moments zooming out a bit, if we could, and looking at this topic from kind of a broader perspective. And then at the end, we're going to zoom back in and talk very practically about how those principles apply. And I want to even share a tool with you that we've provided for you all here today. The first thing I want to do is kind of give just a quick working definition, if I could, of what a pathway is. This is just how we're going to define it today. And that's simply this, is that a pathway is any course of action with a connected past, present, and future. Any course of action with a connected past, present, and future. So those are going to be key elements as we're going to kind of unpack this today. All right, let's turn our focus to the exercise, if we could here. This is what you should have in front of you. And as we go through this, I want to explain, we're going to do this in a couple different passes. If you have it printed out and in front of you, grab a pen or a pencil real quickly. If you don't have it printed, it's okay. Just look at the screen. You have to lean in and squint, most likely. But I want you to find the blue start circle. There's a circle on your screen that says it's blue. What's that? It's not shared. So I have my my helper here in the background helping me with the Zoom thing. So is it not? You know what? I haven't shared my screen. Would that be helpful if I shared my screen? Let's try that and see what happens. Hey, look at that. Already some Zoom magic. All right. So on your screen, you should see the, let me go back real quickly and just define for you then what we're talking about here with the definition. Any course of action with a connected past, present, and future. All right. So we look at this Pathfinder game now, and on your screen or on your paper, I want you to find the blue circle that says start in it. That's where we're going to begin our little exercise here. Now you'll notice a line coming out of that blue circle that leads to a split in the line that goes in a couple of different directions where you see a couple words. The first two, for example, are red and pizza. What you're going to do when I say begin, I want you to begin at the blue start circle and then find your way down the path. When you come to a split in the path, simply choose a circle with a word in it. Now, I want you to know that these words have no specific meaning. They're not connected to personality styles or perspectives or preferences or any of that. They're just random words. That's all they are. So we're not going to do an analysis of your personality based on what you're choosing, but they're just random words on the page. When you get to that juncture, simply choose the word you want to go toward for whatever reason, and then draw a line to that word. You're going to follow that same pattern until you no longer are able to continue. Your circle will not have a line leading out of it. And we're only going to move forward from the blue circle toward the green circles. We're going to move forward only. Do not go backward. And I'd like for you in this first pass to really just kind of focus on what's in front of you. In other words, don't look ahead. Don't think ahead. Just focus on what's right in front of you. Make your choice based on your preference, and then move that direction when I say begin. All right? So it's pretty simple. Once you are at a place where you cannot advance any further, I want you just to put an X or a little star next to the circle that you stopped on. If you're doing it on the screen, then when you find that final circle that you've reached, just kind of write that word down on the paper, a piece of paper in front of you. Where did you stop? What circle did you stop on? All right. All right. And so with that, let's begin. All right, everyone should be about finished now. It shouldn't take too long to do that first pass. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to see your reaction here. I need to see a little bit of a quick poll. Show of hands, real quickly. How many of you did not reach a green circle? Just raise your hand. How many did not reach? Hold them up for me if you would. I got to flip screens here real quick. All right, excellent. Thank you very much. The vast majority of us did not reach the green circle. Now, let me just encourage you. If you did not reach a green circle, it's okay. Again, that doesn't say anything about you, your future, or any of that. Yeah, big deep breath, right? The most of the time when we do this exercise, very few people, in fact, we find it to be about 3% of people actually reach a green circle the first time we do this exercise. Now I want you to think about, I want you to look at the word that you landed on and consider the path backward from that word, some of the words that you came through. Quick, I'm going to ask a couple of you to unmute. I have some names on my screen, so I'll just call your name out for the sake of time, and you can answer this question. If you chose red, raise your hand. Right out of that first circle. Okay. Marcia Minton, tell me, why did you choose red?
Because I had pizza last night and I did not want to go to pizza.
All right. Yeah. Excellent.
Again.
Very, very good. All right. Who else chose red? All right. Gregory Noack, why did you choose red?
Similar reason. I had a big meal last night and I didn't want pizza.
Just not hungry, right?
Yeah.
No pizza for me. Red. All right. Very good. Who chose pizza? Raise your hand. All right. John Heiser, tell me, John, why did you choose pizza?
Pizza is one of my favorite meals next to steaks. So pizza.
Right, steaks and pizza. I like it. We need to grab lunch sometime, John. Who else chose pizza? Anybody else choose pizza? All right. Aaron Bowling, tell me, why did you choose pizza?
Because pizza is delicious.
Pizza. I think we can all agree on some level, most likely pizza is delicious, right? That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, here's what's interesting. I think one of the things I find very intriguing about this exercise is that here we are on sort of a nondescript Monday in the beginning of February 2021. No real rhyme or reason to the words that are in the circles. And yet every one of us chose our path based on a set of values. If I had the time today, we would explore what words you chose and why all along the path that you took. And here's what we would discover is that every one of us would have a reason for every word we chose along the path. Now, interestingly, most of us did not reach a green circle. We ended up somewhere on the path that finally there was nowhere else to go, and we're stuck in that final circle. And we could spend some time talking about the words in those circles. But what we would find, what we would discover, is that every one of us made our choices and were directed by our values. And that's really kind of the basis of our conversation today. We're going to talk about the connection between pathways and values and how our values drive our pathways. Before we get too deep into it, I want to do this exercise again. I want us to begin a different way this time. I want you to look at the paper in front of you. I'll bring the screen back up here. And this time, I want you to begin in a green circle. Choose a green circle, whether it's house, family, health, money, faith, whatever it might be. And ask yourself this question: where do I want to end up? Maybe it's house, maybe it's family. Choose your green circle. And now from there, I want you to take a second and trace backward through the other circles and simply find a path that connects you from that green circle back to the blue circle. Let's take a second and just follow the lines there. All right, and once you've identified that path back to the blue circle, I want you to go ahead and again, put your pen or pencil on the blue circle or your finger on the screen on the blue circle. And when I say begin, this time I want you to follow the path that takes you to the green circle, and notice as you go through all the words that you're passing through. All right, ready, begin. All right, and this time it might have even gone a little bit quicker because you kind of knew where you were going. So let me stop my share here, and we'll talk about this real quickly. Now, here, let's ask the same question we asked last time. Show of hands. How many of you this time reached a green square? If you show of hands, if you reached a green square. All right, let me scroll through my screens here. Keep your hands up if you would, please. Thank you. Looks like everybody reached a green square. Well done, everyone. You reached a green square this time. Now, it's interesting because every time that we do this exercise, no matter who I do this exercise with, 100% of people, well, there's always that one, but 100% of people reach a green circle the second time we do this exercise. And it might seem really elementary as to why that might be. But here's what I want you to kind of look at. It's interesting, the first time through, most of us did not get past a certain spot in the maze. The second time we got to the green circle. But why is that? Well, it's because we began with a destination in mind. And here's what I want to kind of draw out for you. First, I'd like to ask, how many of you in this exercise chose health as your green circle? Just raise your hand. Anybody choose health? All right, Karen, is it Abel, I hope that's right, or Abel. Karen, do you mind sharing, why did you choose health?
I guess just under the current circumstances, that's on my mind.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. Thank you for that. Who chose money? Did anybody choose money? Raise your hand. No one's brave enough to say they chose money. Is that what? Okay, Jenny, there you are. Jenny, yeah, share with me, Jenny. Why did you choose health or money?
I guess because I have been doing other trainings with my real estate business. So I was just thinking of money.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. Here again, what we see is that in this nondescript exercise that really has necessarily no connection to just the randomness of the words that are associated here, we're choosing our destination even today in this exercise based on a predetermined set of values. There's a connection for us. There's a reason that we chose that circle. But here's what I want you to see. Now, going backward this time on the second pass of this exercise, how many of you, when you started the blue circle and you started to go toward the green circle you had chosen, had to pass through words that under normal circumstances you may not have chosen? Anybody, raise your hand if you had to. Yeah, every one of us reached a point in the process, in the journey, in the path where we had to make a decision about what we were going to choose. In the previous past, we would have chosen red because we had pizza last night. But this time we chose pizza. Why was that? Because we had a broader goal in mind. There was a bigger picture in mind that was driving us forward. And we knew if I choose pizza in this instance, I will not get to my money goal. I can't get there if I make this choice in front of me. Now, it's interesting because in this exercise that we've done here, let me go back to sharing my screen here with you. This exercise really is the exact picture of the work that we do with students. And even students are constantly every day making choices based on their set of values, a predetermined set of values. And that's what I really kind of want to walk through with you today. Because as we focus on helping them to build a pathway, there's more than just the green circle that we must have in mind. I want to show you how all three of these components are very connected in the pathway. Remember our definition of a pathway. It's a course of action connected by a past, present, and future. And so helping them to get focused on a bigger picture is only a small part of the equation. We must also help them establish a clear path and encourage them as they walk that out, often making very difficult decisions that under normal circumstances, they may not have made. And I also want you to recognize that even in this exercise, we see these three components. We see the future of the green circle, we see the past of where we've begun, and we see the present of all the choices that we have to make. So I kind of want to walk through this with you, if we could, real quickly here. In fact, as we come out of this exercise, we're going to look at these three components. I want to look at component number one in this, which is the future. The future. Now, what you do as an organization this is the biggest part, really, kind of what you do, is you're thinking about the future of your students. And when we think about the future in this situation, we're talking about a career pathway. There are a few elements that we have in mind, questions that we can ask ourselves. For example, we might say, well, what are employees looking for? What's the future of the industry? What skills are needed today and even out into the future for our students to enjoy a satisfying career, a career that satisfies them? Or what opportunities are emerging in new industries? And we begin to think about the future. We begin to think not only about the future of industry and the skills that are needed and so on, but immediately we began to make some connections between what we see in the future of industry and career opportunities with what we know about the students that are coming along on this pathway. You know, for years, I facilitated an annual program through our Chamber of Commerce here in Marion called Leadership Marion. Some of you may have heard of that type of program through local chambers of commerce. 9 months out of the year, I would spend some time with about 30 to 40 business leaders from our community, local government leaders, education, nonprofit leaders, and we would explore kind of the inner workings of our community. In the process, we had the chance to interview dozens of business leaders and government leaders from around our community and ask them about what they're looking for in future employees. And again and again and again, for years, for nearly 10 years, we heard the same response. And this might resonate with you. Soft skills. We're looking for people who will show up on time, that will stay all day, that'll put in the work, and have at least a base level of interpersonal skills. We heard it again and again and again. It's still true today. I'm still hearing that in our community today from business leaders today. We're looking for those soft skills, simply the ability to show up and do the work. And most likely, I'm convinced that's probably what you're hearing as well. So we have this base set of skills that we know are fundamental to success and to a satisfying career, that we know industry is going to be looking for, but they're also then our professional skills that we know they're going to be looking for. You know, basic computer skills, decent communication skills, leadership ability, interpersonal interaction, those skills that become then industry specific in some cases that our students are going to need specific training on. And we look then to connect them to pathways that will help them develop in those areas as well. And some of those things may shift over time. We have, for example, here in our community, a very strong robotics component. Our local, one of our local schools that focuses on career development actually has a very robust robotics course for our students, and it's become very successful, actually become nationally recognized. And so we see those things emerge in industry, and we keep our eye on that. We're always looking to the future of what's coming down the road. But we also have to account for the future that the student sees. What is their bent? What are their interests? And so on. And so evaluating the future is a little like choosing the green circle. We get a good, clear snapshot of what we want to go toward, and we allow that to become our starting point for building our pathway. But it's only the beginning. It's only a small component, and it's only the beginning. So let's look here then at the past. When we think about the past, we recognize that this career path starts really early. You know, and working with students over the last 20 plus years that we've done through our organization, Quest Student Leadership and Current Family, we really help to try to do what we can to help them define a clear path forward. And some of the questions that we have to consider are things like, when does the process of value-driven choices begin? When does that process begin for us? Well, research indicates that our values actually begin to form the moment we're born. So as soon as we're born, we come into this world, our values are beginning to form and to shape. And over the course of our lives, they accumulate and they're impacted by a variety of factors. And ultimately, they form the basis for who we become. And so I want to kind of talk about an article that was in a recent Psychology Today publication. Dr. Jim Taylor wrote this. He said, to truly understand what values you possess and live by, you must deconstruct them until you are able to clearly see what exactly you value and why you hold those values. Looking openly and honestly at the way you were raised is the first step in identifying the values that you instilled growing up. And Dr. Taylor would go on to say in this article that even our career choices are impacted greatly by the values that have been developed over the course of our lives. That unless at some point in our life's journey, we have sort of a crisis of conscience where we challenge the things that we've been influenced by and the things that we believe, the values that we have held dear to that point, unless we have this crisis of conscience and really challenge those things, that we're very likely to build our future following that path our values have created. And this sounds familiar, right? It sounds familiar to the exercise that we have done, that we simply follow the path until we come to a place where our choices have brought us to a point where we can no longer advance. And when we look at where we are, it's a result of every decision that we've made along the way, with our head down on the present only, just choosing based on preference and our preset determined set of values. And we end up where we end up. Our values drive our future. You know, when we do this exercise with kids, it's so cool because when we do the same exact Pathfinder exercise with kids beginning in the 3rd grade, you might not be surprised to know that we discovered the exact same thing happening. Every student, no matter how young they are, has a reason for the things that they chose. They'll say, I chose red because, I chose ball because. Kids have their reasons. And they're choosing from a place of values, just like you and I did today. And just like you, they begin in the blue circle. And when we have them begin with the green circle in mind, just like we did, they have to also go through circles they would not have chosen under normal circumstances. They have to make decisions that under normal circumstances they would not have made if they want to get where they've chosen to go in the green circle. It's funny though, because with kids, their values can be very fluctuating. In fact, they are very impressionable. For example, we might hear, I chose red because my friend chose red. Or I did not choose ball because out on recess, I got hit by the ball and I didn't really like it. And so I didn't choose ball for that reason. So kids are very fluid in some of their values, but yet there are values underlying the choices. And here's what I want you to see is that even at this young age, pathways of values are already emerging. And it's starting to show up in their cognitive processes. And not just in the fact that they're thinking about values, but they're thinking about what their values mean and why they matter. And this is what we're beginning to see emerge at these early stages. Yeah, they're values. Sometimes they can be very fluid, but they're starting to get a handle on what those values mean. So the path starts very early, and we want to begin to tap into that. There are several influences that impact our values at this early stage. There are known influences, hereditary influences, for example. The makeup, our genetic makeup in some ways impacts our values. Our relational influences, so our parents, siblings, peers, outside influences, relationships, and then experiential influences. Now, hereditary influences really start to show up to about the age of 12. Relational influences, experiential influences, we really notice mostly up after the age of 8, they really start to show up in our lives in a greater way. But our experiences, our relationships, things like home, sports, school, church, clubs, playtime, you name it, those all have a major impact on our set of values. And our values are driving our decisions, including what we're choosing for a career. Here's what I want you to see. is that in these early years, deposits are being made that are shaping who we are, how we think, and our worldview, including our view of ourselves. So all these factors are influencing our values, literally who we are becoming. And so that brings us to the present. I was coaching with a school district recently as a group of about 30 administrators, principals, superintendents, and so on. And I asked a question, I did a quick poll, and I want to ask the same poll of you. We got onto the topic of how frustrating it is for educators around May every year with seniors, that the seniors just seem distracted. They're not interested in school anymore. And specifically, the problem they were talking about trying to solve is that this is the time when final tests are happening. And the educators were concerned that it was having an impact on how well the students were scoring in these final tests. And so we got on this topic of how seniors get distracted about every May. And the word that was used was senioritis. And so I did a quick poll of everybody in the room, and I simply asked this question. I said, how many of you, when you were a senior in high school, experienced senioritis? Guess how many hands went up? Every single hand went up. In fact, let me just do a quick poll with you right now. How many of you have ever experienced senioritis? When you went to high school, you had May hit, and I'm like, I'm checking out. Most of us do. We get senioritis. And so it was interesting because as we talked about senioritis and recognized we all experienced, the simple question I posed was this: if we know that, and some of these educators were out of high school 30 years ago, some were just recently out. So this is not a new trend. It's been around for a very long time. And so the question was, well, if we know that every May, from the beginning of time, from the beginning of high school, seniors have had senioritis, and we know most likely next May, this new class of seniors is going to experience senioritis, maybe we should learn to work with it instead of against it. Is there a way that we can work with what we know is going to happen in the life of a student in seasons of their lives? Now, we know that preschoolers are likely to color outside the lines. We shouldn't be surprised when they go outside the lines coloring for some of the first times. There are things that happen in the seasons of our development that are simply always going to be true. The more we understand about these seasons, the more we can embrace these seasons of development and the values that drive what's happening in these seasons and work with them to help forge a path forward. And that brings us to the present. Because again, the present is where we're making our choices that determine our future. Here's what I want you to see about our present, is that from the time we are born, we are becoming our present self. From the time we are born, we are becoming our present self. Just think about that for a second. Who you are today, who I am today, has been impacted by the patterns that we've experienced through our lives and the values that have driven us, the influences that we've had in our lives, our experiences, some of our genetics, and those values drove our choices and led us to who we are today. And it's true for every one of us. In fact, let me just ask you this question. Why do you do what you do? Why are you on this call today? What brought you to this place? In fact, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of a mental exercise right now, if you could. What is it about your career that keeps you up at night in a good way? That keeps you up at night in a good way. What causes you to get up and get energized in the morning? And I want you to take a second real quickly here and think hard about a moment in your past when you felt you knew for certain that this is what you wanted to do. Just think back to whatever that was. And if you have just paper in front of you, maybe write it down real quick. Just jot down a note. This is when I first remember this really being what I wanted to do. And I'm going to ask you to go a little bit further, just a little bit further than that. Stretch just a little bit here and think just a little bit deeper. Really reach back into some of those earliest moments if you can, recalling thinking about what you do today and who you are today. And maybe it was just at the time a little just a fuzzy possibility, but it was starting to be a spark for you. Where were you? When was that? Maybe you recall an encounter with a teacher. Maybe you saw a parent or a relative in the type of role that you're in today. Maybe someone came to your school and gave a presentation, or they were a life coach or an educator, a legislator, an athlete, an attorney, a business person. Think back as far as you can to what influenced your thinking in those moments. What really resonated with you? Why did that moment stick out to you? Just kind of jot down a note real quick. You know, I was in a recent conversation with Coach Gary Rose. He's a fabulous guy. In 8th grade, Gary had a football coach that had a tremendous impact on him. His words were this. He said, he really validated me. Into his high school career, he had a biology teacher that he said the same words about. He said, you just really, really resonated with me, really validated who I was as a student. There was a connection there for me with this individual. 8th grade football coach, high school biology teacher. And Gary recounted to me, he said, you know, when I was going into college, I wasn't really sure exactly where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. He said, except that these influences kept resonating in me. He said, and ultimately, I chose to pursue a career as a biology teacher. And I chose to pursue a career in coaching football. And so he got his degree in biology, became a biology teacher, coached football for 33 plus years in the state of Oklahoma. And in that 33-year career was the 10-time state champion, the second most winning state championship coach in high school football, Division I football in Oklahoma. And Coach Gary Rose attributes his journey, his path, to the influence of that 8th grade football coach and that high school biology teacher. The truth is that every one of us, every one of our paths are influenced all along our trajectory. And that path begins early. I really want to encourage you today that the career pathway that you're looking to shape for your students is a connected pathway, and it begins very early. Some of the work that I hear Angie doing with ROE and the connection there is so tremendous, and I can't encourage it enough because there's so much value and gold to be mined in understanding who our students are becoming. And here's the powerful point that I want you to see is that from the time we are born, we are becoming who we are today. We're becoming our present self. Yesterday, you were becoming who you are today. Now, I know, I recognize that might seem a little deep for a Monday morning in a Zoom call on a conversation about career pathways. But let's not lose sight of this fact that while, yes, we're talking about helping students land a good job, there's more to it than that. We're helping to guide them into a satisfying future. And now we know that even you and I are proof of that fact. We're where we are today. And I wish we had time to really kind of unpack your own journey. It'd be a very intriguing conversation. I think we'd learn a lot from some of the stories that we would hear from your peers here on this call about who they are today, what they do today, and how they got to that point. In fact, I encourage you, if you know each other and have a little bit of a relationship, to make that phone call. Spend a little time talking about how you got where you are today. Who influenced your journey? When did those values begin to emerge for you? I think you're going to find a common thread. I think if you continue to follow that thread, that course back from the green circle that you're in today, back through your path to the blue circle where you began, I think you're going to find that journey goes well back into your past. And so we see the connection between the future, looking at what's the future for our students, and the past, who have they been, and the present, how are their current choices lining them up for what we know will be a satisfying future for them. So the career pathway is connected from beginning to end, and that path starts early. So the question then becomes this, is what does all this have to do with career pathways? Why does this matter for the work that we do? Well, it matters because of this, because by the time we ask a sophomore in the present what career they want to pursue, what we're asking them to do is to make an on-the-spot decipher and evaluation of nearly 2 decades of a torrent of social emotional development from the past, and to distill that down into a well thought out, meaningful vision for their professional future. I don't know about you, but that'd be a lot for me as a sophomore. we can really begin to tap into understanding who our students are in a greater way and bringing some knowledge to that conversation. Because what if we could find a way to tap into who they've been in the past? What if we had a way of understanding who they are today? And what if we could use that information to help predict who they may become in the future? We look to discover as much as we can about what's influenced them, about what their preferences are, what really gets them going, what makes them tick. And we think forward about how that can connect to what we know about the future of industry. Begin looking at soft skills, helping to develop those soft skills from a very, very early age. A lot of the work that we do in our Quest student leadership model is meant to do exactly that. We help students develop strong character because great leadership is built on strong character. We help them to develop a sense of self-expectation, goal setting, beginning the process of developing executive functioning, how their choices impact their future, and then ultimately teach them influence, which is leadership, how they influence not only their own journey, but the journeys of people around them. That work begins the process of pulling out those soft skills of showing up, keeping their word, working hard, putting in a good effort early, so that by the time they arrive at a career choice, they have those things in place, job-related skills that they can learn along the way. And a system like this that begins early, by the time this sophomore walks into the career pathways office and begins to have that conversation, she's already received years of prep, training, guidance, and it's put her in a much different position to have that kind of conversation. This is what we've already done in our own lives at different junctures. It's the same question we ask around senioritis. It's not a question of whether or not we'll have senioritis. It's how we're going to manage it. It's not the question of whether or not our students have values and those values are going to drive their decisions. It's how are we going to manage those values and how are we going to drive toward a bigger picture. So those are the things we recognize. And I know I've thrown a lot at you here today. I hope this has been really encouraging to you, but I want to share with you two more components and then quickly end by looking at the resource that I've given you. The final two components in this is something that we have to recognize. And that is this, is that the process requires a system. The work that you do, that you all do together, it is built on this premise that we're not just singularly looking at the development of a student, but we're looking at the development of a student inside all of their environments. And not just inside their environments, but inside the environments in which they will exist. So we're involving the outside community. We're involving the local schools. We're involving the community college. We're involving the business leaders. And we're getting everyone in this conversation and beginning to pull the components out that we can to help match this pathway from the earliest stages possible clear through to that moment when they step into that career. Requires that kind of broad view system. There's a lot of study that's been done on closed circuits, how closed circuits that are closed are from their inception deteriorating in energy. In other words, without an outside source of energy, that circuit will eventually run out of energy. But when we open ourselves to outside influences, open circuits that are allowed to receive from the outside, perpetuate and actually create a sort of synergy in which they perpetually have energy and motion forward. So we want to open that circuit up. We want to open up the system so that those voices can speak into this process, knowing what we know about the careers and the development of our students and help them build that pathway. The second thing is that every student deserves a pathway. And I can't emphasize this enough. Every student deserves a pathway. You know, in our work with Quest Student Leadership and the system that we've developed for our local schools called the Value Agents, based on this group of young heroes that have developed their powers. They don't have superpowers. They're just normal young students that have developed systems and processes for magnifying certain things that they value. For example, Visor, as you see in the picture here, the first one on the left there, his is vision. He doesn't have superpower vision, but he's learned to use tools to enhance his desire to have strong vision and use it for his own good and the good of others. And we teach these principles to these characters. And what we recognize is that our students, as we engage them in this process through this work, is that every student deserves to be a leader. They have leadership ability inside of them. And one of the conversations that we have consistently with teachers and educators when we introduce this system into local schools is they'll ask this question: how do we choose which students should be leaders? Because our natural tendency is to think it's going to work for some kids, but not for all of them. Some will choose a career pathway, but some won't. Some will become leaders, but some won't. And one of the things that we have to do consistently is remind our teachers, every student is a leader. Every student is leading on some level at some capacity. It's not a question of whether or not they'll be a leader. It's a question of whether or not we will engage in helping them to develop as leaders. The same is true with career pathways. It's not a question about whether or not a student is going to pursue some kind of career. All of them will. It's a question about the level of our involvement. How involved will we be with them choosing a career that satisfies who they are? And in the same way that we say every student is a leader, and so through our system, every student leads throughout the year. In the same way, students are forging a path based on their values. The question is, are we going to engage them at every juncture in that path and help them to develop into who they desire to be? So here's the resource that we've given to you. And this specifically is as used with interaction with the students. And it's based on our CAB University system, this system that we developed for corporate coaching, where we speak about clarity, alignment, and busting barriers. Here's what we know from years of corporate leadership and various types of organizations and in working with executives, is that success comes down to these three factors: clarity, being clear about our goals; alignment, aligning our people, teams, and resources to those clear goals; and busting barriers, overcoming the obstacles that keep us from reaching that clear objective. If we have clarity and we align and we overcome the barriers, we can repeat success again and again. And this really is the foundation for the Pathfinder exercise that we went through. We began with clarity, the green circle. And then we aligned. We went back through the path and we made our choices. We predetermined our choices based on where we knew we wanted to go. And then we simply walked through the process at every juncture, making the right choice. And every one of us, when we did that, arrived at the green circle we had chosen. And so in the resource that we've given you, you have this same exercise that you can do with your students. Walk them through the exact same thing. And in the resource, we've outlined it completely, exactly how to walk through it with your students. Now you'll see a few different choices here: food, money, fun, school, friends, than we put on yours, but those resonate more with young students. Also in this resource, we have given you some narrative based on the CAB framework: clarity, alignment, and busting barriers. We prompt you to walk through the future, the past, and the present. What do you know about the future, the market values that are associated with the career pathway? And there's some simple questions inside these boxes you can answer. Write your narrative inside the box. And then you begin to look at the past. What markers do you see from an academic, social, emotional, family, personality perspective about this particular student that you feel may advise the journey of that student? Now that you work individually with the student on this and kind of begin to unpack their past a little bit. What do you know? What's that saying about their trajectory? And then finally, we look toward their future. To what extent have the past patterns, whether positive or negative, continued into the present time? So what do we see this student bringing forward into their present scenario? And what might that advise us about how they're going to continue? It gives us a chance to maybe address some things or to maybe enhance some things that are going on in their life, to say, hey, here's a clue of who they may become based on the trajectory so far. And this will help us to get a better view of what might work for them out into the future. You take that information, distill it down into a narrative, kind of write this out. This could become an action plan. More than anything, it becomes a way for you to express what you see about this particular student. It gives you kind of a clear picture of what you believe may be possible, what you know about what industry and careers are looking for, companies, businesses, and now what you know about the student. And it helps you develop even a more clear pathway. And we recommend, if you're working with a student, to take this summary and actually share it with them. In fact, on the previous page, you're going to do some of this work interactively with students, asking these questions, walking through with them. And then we would share the narrative, and we'd simply read what we've written and say, how does that resonate with you? What does that sound like? And what we're looking for are clues into what they see, because what they see is going to be set based on their set of values. And that's how the future, the past, and the present can all work together to, again, go to our definition, that pathway, a set of actions connected by a past, present, and future. And that's what we're trying to build here, is a way to connect them through their journey to a satisfying career. And with that, that ends my conversation with you today, my presentation for you today. I hope that you found something in here that you really can connect to. I really believe that this work is tremendously important. I applaud you. We're cheering you on with what you're doing. And just really thank you for your time today. And look forward to any questions that you might have, answering any questions that have come up with for you through this process. And Janice, Angie, thank you so, so much for allowing me to be a part of the day. I'd be glad to answer, Janice, any questions that you have. I know we're right up against our time here. Anything that you have for me? Otherwise, I wish you guys all the best.
Just one piece here. So there was a comment from Daryl Ho. He said, great question about why we do what we do. Through social media, he was able to thank his high school algebra teacher who connected him to success through belief and hard work.
Awesome.
He, like many here today, like connecting kids to opportunities and growth. So thanks for sharing that, Daryl.
Thanks, Daryl.
Any other quick questions for Tom? If you think of any throughout the day, feel free to throw those into the chat, and I'll be glad to forward those to Tom as well. The link to the workbook is in the chat. You should have gotten it also in your email. So make sure that you take that resource and make good use of it. Also, Tom has provided the license for us to duplicate that within our own classrooms. So please feel free to use that as you will with your own students. I love the way, Tom, that you took us from the beginning to where we are right now and to where we're going to go. And so I think that's a great overview of some of the more specific pieces that we're going to look at later this morning. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Privileged to be with you all. Wish you all the absolute best in what you're doing. Looking forward to some great success for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, before Tom goes away, okay, we're going to have you choose a number, Tom, because Tom has given us some additional resources to give away today. And so one of those is a curriculum package that I will send to the winner. And so, Angie, what numbers does Tom have to choose from?
1 through 67, Tom.
Oh man, the pressure. Oh goodness. Okay, let's go with 33.
33. That's Karen Obley.
Okay.
Yo, Karen.
Great.
My new best friend.
Well, we have 3 other giveaways from Tom today, as well as a couple other sock and pathway mugs to give away. So swag continues to flow from us today. All right, great. Thank you, Tom. We'll let you go on and do your whatever is on your schedule the rest of the day. Thank you, Victoria, for helping us as well. It's been great.
Thanks, Janice, very much. Good to see you all.
You bet. All right. So if you have just joined us, somebody's going to put the link to the sign in there again. And so make sure that you do that. We have we need to talk about the why. We talk about that in our team all the time. Is we ask students to do things without knowing the why. Just do it, right? It's good for you. And so I could say that to you, just do this pathway work. It's good for you. It's good for students, right? But we want to spend some time talking about the why as well, so that you have that kind of understanding and you can go forward to share that with your students. I think Tom gave us a great foundation for that today. And so Angie and I want to talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of what's driving our work.
All right, Janice, I'm going to share my screen. There's certainly a lot to unpack from what Tom shared with us this morning. I was frantically writing down notes with my Sharpie and my Post-its here at home. And, you know, one of the very first things that I wrote on a big, huge Post-it note right here is clarity, alignment, and busting barriers. And so for the next few minutes, Janice and I are going to actually do just that. So we're going to be providing some clarity with some data. We're going to be talking about alignment of all of these systems to help improve outcomes for our students. And we're also going to be talking about busting barriers by having a focus on equity. So we couldn't have planned it better. And what an interesting correlation to make with what Tom just shared with us for the past 45 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about this why piece. And we know that with any kind of cultural change, which is really what this is all about, this is a cultural change within our system. We do want to take time to explain the why and the how. So as we kind of get started with this piece, I want to pull out a few more things that Tom mentioned this morning as part of our why. One of the things that he mentioned that harkened back to a previous summit that we had several years ago is this idea that our obligation to our students does not end after they leave our doors in grade 12. Really, this is a community commitment to not only growing our students, but growing our communities. And so therefore, as pre-K 12 and even through grade 20 educators on the Zoom call this morning, we have an obligation to make sure that these students are successful because they are our future. I love the fact that Tom mentioned this idea of a system. If all of you know me and know that I'm all about systems, but it really gave me some pause to think about this idea of an open circuit versus a closed circuit. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. That's that whole idea behind collective impact. And so we know that we are stronger together than we are trying to do all of this work in isolation. I think it's important for us to contextualize this why piece being from a rural community. We talk a lot with our business and industry folks. We talk a lot with our legislative representatives about the fact that we are experiencing an exodus from our rural communities. Students don't see themselves adults perhaps don't see themselves as having opportunities for employment in our hometowns. And so really this is about creating those pathways and also simultaneously having some conversations about pipelines to grow our local industry and economy so that we are creating these robust rural communities where it's not even a thought. Students, families, a whole host of people want to come back here and make this their home. And the final thing that I kind of want to tease out from what Tom mentioned this morning is the fact that we need skilled workers with soft skills. And we hear this from our business and industry folks quite a bit. And so this is part of, in addition to the academic focus that we all have, building those soft skills is an important piece, which is a huge component of our pathways work together. So those are some things that were kind of percolating with me. I would invite you to share any of your takeaways in the chat as we kind of take the next few minutes to explore this why a little further. And I would also like to remind you that when we're talking about this pathways work, in our own communities, we are focused on developing 3 different pathways at this time, thanks to support from some grant funding. So we are busy building our education pathways, which you're going to see some data on in just a moment. We also are working to build pathways in agriculture and in manufacturing. And that's because the data was showing us that these were the systems that needed to be in place. And we already had willing and ready stakeholders at the table. So here's a look at Illinois by the numbers. We have approximately 2 million students in the state of Illinois. And here's some demographic information. When we talk about equity, this is going to be really important to remember. 49% of our students across the state are low income. We have 15% of students with IEPs. The next two speak volumes to me personally. We have a significant portion of our students who are either chronically absent or truant. And what this makes me question is, do students have a reason or a purpose or that vision that Tony talked about to continue to engage in their educational journey? We also make a lot of post-secondary connections. So when we look at our students in the state of Illinois, 73% of students enroll in post-secondary within 12 months locally, depending, it varies from district to district, but sometimes we see lower than 73%. And 43% of Illinois students enrolled in remedial coursework at the community college level. Because they were not deemed college or career ready in math or English language arts, which is also a significant part of our pathways conversation and our conversations related to college and career readiness. So we know that we have a diverse student population. We know that by being a rural community, some of these numbers are actually higher in some cases. And so it's all about thinking about what our students need and giving them the tools so that they can be successful with whatever path they might choose to take. We have been very fortunate to receive a grant from the Illinois State Board of Education, actually 2 grants that some of you on this call are actually a part of, to support our education pathway work. And I highlight this information because for us as professionals, we are very well aware of the fact that we are facing and in the middle of an impending shortage, and it's reaching kind of crisis level proportions. This data is pulled from an Illinois Association of Regional School Superintendents teacher shortage survey, which will be made available to the public on February 22nd. But we do have some special permission to share some of this data with you in advance. So here, when we're looking at our own field of education, here's what we're up against. And I'll give you a minute just to kind of take a look at some of the numbers. "938 positions were reported as unfilled in education." That's pretty startling. And more than 250 classes have been canceled. So we know even in our own profession, we have a situation that we're dealing with, and we need to get our students interested in investigating that education pathway. Here's where we're looking locally. This was part of our grant application to receive those dollars from the State Board of Education to support our education pathway work. So for the 2019-2020 school year, there were 98 educator openings in Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. 79 of those positions were filled with qualified hires, and 19 positions were left open or filled with unqualified applicants. And then I've included there some of our information on some of those hardest to fill positions in our world of education. No surprises there. And then finally, when we think about our teacher shortage, we have to acknowledge the COVID effect. So this year alone, 37% of schools in Illinois hired more teachers to accommodate things such as remote or hybrid learning or social distancing requirements. 40% of schools brought in more paraprofessionals. We also know that because of COVID, we have some teachers who are even considering leaving the profession due to a variety of stressors. So induction, mentoring, teacher recruitment is going to be imperative moving forward, and we need to start that pathway and that pipeline from a very early age so that we can address this shortage. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Janice.
Well, with an eye on the time, I'm going to zip through because you've heard us talk about the PWR Act and all of those pieces. But for us to keep in mind that all of this work is being driven through the PWR Act. We want students to be passionate about the career that they choose and to be able to learn those skills in authentic ways and to do that before they get into the workplace so that their choices are are ones that they can live with, and ones that bring them delight. Not every day at work is delightful, of course, but we want students to meet their experience, their graduation experiences and competencies before they leave high school, so they go out better prepared. All right, so let's look at the PWR Act. All of these slides will be given to you for sure. There's more information. Let's go on to the next one, Angie. There are 4 components that we're going to talk about. The PACE document, most of you hopefully have in place. It's that plan. The State Board of Education says that we can have a 5th grade through 12th grade plan of career exploration, what students are going to do at what grade level in order to have those experiences to go out better prepared. Let's go on to competency. Okay. We know, see, all of that's in there. You can get all of that. I want to make sure that we've got a student panel that's going to knock your socks off. So that's why I'm trying to get there, because they're exciting. Transitional math is a piece of that, both in through the state. Every school district has to offer transitional math. We have 3 pathways: tech, math, STEM, and quantitative literacy and stats. If you have any questions about how to do that in your school, contact me. We have several districts who are leading the way in that, piloted that, so we're excited to be able to offer that. Transitional ELA work is underway. We worked with a group of great English teachers last year, both college and high school, and we're going to continue that work this summer. So looking forward to putting together a pilot in that. We welcome Riverbend and their competency-based learning program that they're doing right now in English, and how that's going. The idea of competencies versus standards, where it's skills and knowledge that students attempt to master rather than what we teach. Okay, and then the college and career pathway endorsements. Angie said we're working in education, manufacturing, and agriculture. There are 7 throughout the state of Illinois. These are just the 3 locally that we see a need. You can see the components here, and those will be presented in the breakout sessions today as well.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to zoom ahead here, and I want to leave us with one final thought. This is something that Tom Toney alluded to with regards to busting barriers. And this is something that we've been talking a lot about, especially in the past year with COVID, but most assuredly also having these conversations with our pathway endorsement work and our college and career readiness conversations. And this is this idea of equity. And so we know that our students are facing barriers. We saw that in some of the data with the percentage of students with IEPs who come from low SES background. A significant portion of our student population may be first generation college students, trauma. There's a variety of barriers that our students are facing. And one of the things that I love when we have these conversations is thinking about the difference between equality and equity. And this is a little bit different, perhaps, image than what you perhaps have seen in the past when we're having conversations about equity. This is the image that is typically used. I was doing a lot of research on this idea of equity, and a lot of folks don't like that image because height, it is an inherent characteristic. And when we think about equity, it's not about your skin color or something that's inherent to your person. Oftentimes it's about the situation you find yourself in. And so you'll notice that all of these children here are of the similar height, but they're placed on different levels of the field, which may advantage or disadvantage their views of the game. So think about those situations in students' lives that may give them a leg up or not. And so when we think about this idea of equity, it's providing each and every student what they need so that they can be successful with not only the work and education that they're engaged in now, but also in preparing them for their futures. So with anything, In our work, we want to have that lens on equity and removing barriers, whether those are language barriers, transportation barriers. There are a whole host of things that we need to account for when planning and developing those open circuit systems for our students. And the hope is that eventually we will get to this idea of justice where the fence doesn't even exist at all. So there are some additional questions here that are going to allow you to kind of think about equity with this work, as well as some hyperlinks. As Janice mentioned, we will share out some of these slides, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now because we do have our wonderful student panel that we are pleased to welcome.
Before we do that, we have a second giveaway, CAB University subscription from Tom Tony. So we need to draw for that because we need to make sure these get in people's hands.
Absolutely. So I see Bob is with us. Bob, give me a number 1 through 67.
24.
24. 24. Jenny Kirchner. Congratulations.
Hey. I'll send you directions on how to get that, Jenny. Okay, so now it's time. We have found in every summit that we have had that every panel, whether it be business folks, college folks, high school folks, students, has been well received, legislators, but the best part has always been hearing from students themselves. So I am excited to have students here today. Julie Clark, who has been a part, who is one of the first students in the state to get an endorsement in education on her high school transcript. So we're excited to welcome Julie. We're excited to welcome Janet and Olivia from District 214 and the Arlington Heights area who are on the education pathway. And then to bring in a former student, former SOC student, Kennedy Dingus. She went to high school in Amboy, has graduated from Winona, and is here to share about her way into education when there was no pathway. All right, so you're going to hear from all of those. And to facilitate our conversation today, I would like to introduce Beth Smaka. Beth is Assistant Professor of Education at Sauk Valley Community College, has a huge background in Montessori education in the elementary level, has lots to bring to the table. So Beth, thank you so much for facilitating.
Thanks, Janice. Hi, everybody. I hope you're somewhere warm and cozy today. It is a very, very chilly day here in Grand Detour, Illinois. I am so happy to be here today at the College and Career Readiness Summit. This is my second year participating in the summit, and I'm so grateful to be asked to come back and help out with this amazing opportunity. We do have some incredible students who have graciously agreed to share some time with us today and tell us about their individual journeys towards pathways and the endorsement in education and their journey to becoming educators. And I'd like to begin by welcoming them and inviting each of those panelists to introduce themselves. So panelists, I'd like to begin by asking you to tell us your name, your year in school, your school or schools of attendance, and anything else you'd like to share with us to get us started today. So Julie, are you with us today?
I am. I'm here.
Welcome. Would you like to
Hi.
begin, please?
Sure. So my name is Julie Clark. I'm currently a freshman at Illinois State University. I graduated from Ridgewood High School over the summer. I graduated with the endorsement. I started the program second semester of my junior year, and I was just very happy to do it. It was something so unique, and I really enjoyed all of it, and it kind of prepared me a lot for coming here.
Thank you so much, Julie. Olivia, are you here?
Hi, I'm Olivia DeLuca. I'm a senior at Rolling Meadows High School, and I'll be going to North Park University next year, and I'm going to be studying special education.
Thank you. Welcome. Janet, are you with us?
Hello, my name is Janet Zarate, and I'm a senior at Rolling Meadows High School as well, just like as Olivia. And I'm not sure what college I'm attending quite yet, but I do know I want to go into elementary education.
Thank you so much. And Kennedy?
Yes, I was an Amboy High School graduate, and then I went to Sauk Valley Community College for 2 years before transferring to Winona State and getting a degree in social studies education.
Thank you so much for that. So it's great to meet each of you. We're excited to learn more about your individual journeys and what brought you and inspired you to this education pathway to choose this for your focus for your future. Side note, audience, please drop any questions in the chat, and as time allows, we'll be able to get to those. The panelists and I were provided with a list of questions before the event, and so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So, this is a question for all 4 of the panelists, and I'd like to invite Julie to kind of get us started after I present the question. If you would please tell us a little bit about your inspiration. Why did you decide to pursue a career in education, Julie?
So I've actually always kind of been interested in teaching ever since I was really little. I used to like teach my brothers on a whiteboard back home. But my English teacher came and talked to me my junior year of high school and said, "Hey, we're doing this program. I feel like you're a great leader. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I explained to her how I've always had a knack for teaching, and I've just been doing it since, and I'm very happy with it.
Thank you so much for bringing your leadership to us today. How about Olivia? Can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Yeah, sure. I've had a lot of amazing teachers in my life, and I know in junior high is when I kind of started thinking about what I wanted to do, because my mom is actually, she was a career counselor. So she kind of worked with a bunch of different students on seeing like their niches and what they wanted to do. And I knew I always wanted to be a teacher as well. I would teach my little brothers too. And I thought that was just something that would bring out the confidence in me and also give me the jump start to starting the pathway into high school. So I just had an amazing science teacher, I remember in 7th grade, and she kind of also gave me a talk too, just like her teacher. And she kind of led me the way to starting my pathway.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that inspiration with us. Janet, would you please tell us what inspired you to choose the educational career?
Yes, of course. So, growing up, kids like often change what they want to be when they grow up. But I've always, since I can remember, been consistent that I've always wanted to be an educator. And because at the little age of like 3, we're always in school, I've always been surrounded by such amazing teachers that inspire me and like make me want to inspire other students just like they did to me as well.
Yeah, paying it forward. Thank you so much. Kennedy, tell us what's inspired you.
Yes, just like everyone else. I mean, I grew up teaching my little siblings, and my experience might be a little unique. I come from a family of teachers. My great grandma actually taught in a 1-room schoolhouse and had a certificate from NIU. So I'm actually a 4-person educator. So my great grandma was a teacher. Both my grandparents, grandpa and grandma, were teachers, and then my mom and uncle are both educators as well. So I come from a unique experience. So that's kind of my own pathway, is through my family.
Wow, how great to continue that family tradition. And it's making me wonder if we all have in common that we all used to play teacher when we were little. I'm the oldest of 4, and I used to always make my sisters do what I wanted them to do. So our next question for the panel is going to be a little bit separated because we have some students here with us today who one has the endorsement, 2 are on the pathway, and then Kennedy, who's here to kind of round out and kind of inspire all of us with that how and why, so that we can continue to bring this work to students on this education pathway. So for Julie, Olivia, and Janet, would you please start us out and tell us a little bit about your pathway program? Tell us what it was like. And maybe Julie, you could get us started again. Tell us about your pathway program.
Sure. So like I said, I started my 2nd semester of junior year. That semester we began with our observation hours, just because it was like the beginning works of the course. So we traveled to surrounding elementary schools and even within our school. And I think we went to another high school as well, just to kind of sit through classes, get some observation hours, take notes, and just see like where we kind of felt comfortable. And then my senior year, it started off with a class at Northeastern Illinois University. I believe it was Foundations of Education. I believe that's the name of the course. And while I was doing that as well, I was also a TA for 2 classes actually. And then I was also getting more observation hours as well. And then second semester of senior year, we had educational psychology. And at that point, I had already finished all of my observation hours. But there was one other thing I had to do that semester. I just can't remember what it was, but that was pretty much the gist of everything we had to do to complete it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if you remember other things that you'd like to tell us about, please feel free to add them in at any time. Olivia, will you tell us about what your education pathway journey is like?
Sure. Yeah. So freshman year, I took Foundations for Learning and Development. Was basically, that's the first class you take if you're interested in just working with children. You don't even have to be interested to be a teacher. But then after that, we have a preschool in my school. So in the community, children come and we get to teach them. So I've been in that program for the past 4 years. I am in preschool 4 right now. And then after that, you can take an internship program, which I was in last year, and I got to actually go back to my elementary school, and I taught with my 4th grade teacher that I had, which was amazing because I remember telling her that I wanted to be a teacher, and it was a great experience to work with those kids. And then right now I'm in Education Academy, so that's also kind of like an internship. And usually in a more general year, not a COVID year, we'd go to 1 special ed class, 1 ESL class, 1 junior high class, and 1 elementary class throughout the whole year. But I've been with a ESL 2nd grade class at Juliet Low Elementary this year, and I love it. It's all online, but it's a great experience. So plus all these classes I've taken are dual credit, so they're either through NLU or stuff like that. So I've gained a lot of experience from this pathway.
Wow, that's a well-rounded experience. That will prepare you to be resilient in the future for sure. How about you, Janet? Will you tell us about your experience on your pathway?
Yes, of course. So my experience has been very similar to Olivia's as we go to the same school. So I think the great part that our education pathway at Rolling Meadows has is that any student can freely take any ed pathway class without any commitment to that specific pathway. So I think that allows us to find out what we're really passionate about before we even get to college. I also did start Foundations for Learning and Development in my sophomore year. So I actually didn't take any classes my first year. I was kind of new and really didn't know what was going on. But thanks to like our counselors and many teachers telling us that we can go to whatever pathway we want, I was able to go my second year to the pathway that's education.
It's so important to have those choices when we're exploring our careers. Thank you so much. My next question is for Kennedy, who did not have the pathway experience, but Kennedy, after hearing your other peers talk about their experience, can you tell us how your high school experience compared and whether you had any specific education experiences in high school that were planned that led you to choose education as a profession?
Honestly, there was not. I didn't have anything that was planned for me that put me in this pathway. Like I said, my pathway was specifically because my family, I watched them growing up and I knew that, but there was nothing specifically at my high school that helped me. And hearing those stories, it's like, whoa, that would have been so helpful. And it would have been so amazing to go through those things. Because even though on my side where I see my family members going through these things, you don't get to see all the good things at school. Like I don't go watch my mom teach. I see her at home and not complaining, but talking about her day and grading a lot of papers and the other side of it. But I would have liked to see it in person at an earlier age would have been definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we understand it's not complaining. It's called processing after,
yeah.
Right? Right.
Nobody does that.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. So the next question has to do with how you were recruited to the education pathway. And so I'm going to start with Julie again. Julie, tell us a little bit about how you were recruited to the education pathway. You said a little bit about some of the adults in your lives who were supportive and mentors. Can you give us a little bit more information about how they guided you?
Sure. So like I said before, my English teacher was the one that actually kind of got me into the program. I was one of 5 originally. The other 4 did not actually continue with the course. I was the only one. But she came out to me the one day and said, would you like to do this course with us? Kind of explained, how it should be run, how it will be run, and what I would get out of it. And immediately I jumped on the opportunity because I just thought this was incredible and I would love to walk into college with that.
Thank you so much. Olivia, can you tell if there was any sort of person who was a particular mentor or support who advised you, or how you were recruited to the pathway?
Well, freshman orientation was kind of the big event that happened where they would talk through all the pathways. And I knew going into high school that I wanted to at least try the education pathway. But I know in 8th grade, one of my teachers kind of sat down with like all of us individually and was like, don't be scared to go to high school. Like, this is a great opportunity, and like take these opportunities and jump into them, because I know a lot of people go through high school not joining clubs or not joining other things and seeing really what they want to do after high school. So I know my science teacher, she really said, like, if you're interested, try it. If you don't like it, like, that's okay. That's what high school's for. So I just jumped into the education pathway. My counselor has been amazing during high school. She's walked me through all the opportunities that they have. And yeah, that's kind of where I got started.
So as early as 8th grade, and your science teacher inspired you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Janet? Is there a particular person or mentor that inspired you or that recruited you to the education pathway?
Yes, I think I'd have to say it was definitely my counselor, because as I said, my first year, I didn't really have, I think going into high school, I was so excited of all the new electives and courses that I just kind of sort of took fun classes. But then I met with my counselor and I realized, well, I want to be a teacher. So taking those ed pathway classes are actually fun to me. So I think she's been a great help. She's been helping me with all the different options and classes I can take, and all the different clinical experiences the school has to offer. So I think my counselor has been my biggest help. And also right now, my teacher that I've had for 2 years, I think she's been really great, Miss Thorson, in just helping us gain more experience and hands-on.
Thank you so much. Isn't it amazing when our choices are those bring us joy as well? So thank you for sharing that. Kennedy, you said that I think I heard you say that your high school didn't have a particular reason or a recruiting to an ed pathway, but was there any sort of career exploration experiences that allowed you to kind of dig in a little deeper to what your choices were in your future?
I know my high school did have some ways you could have gone about exploring different careers. Whiteside Area Career Center is one of those. I know a lot of students took that opportunity. I personally did not. It was focused more towards elementary education, I believe. Like I said, I didn't choose to go there, but I think that my high school should be recognized for taking that and going to Whiteside. They send a lot of students there every year, and I know it's very helpful because it's not through just education, but they have a lot of different ways you can get into different, like car mechanics or nursing or things like that. So I do think that program is really great, but I just personally did not choose to go there.
Yeah, you have already that foundational inspiration behind you that was lifting you up. Thank you for sharing that, Kennedy. So we're going to talk now a little bit about what the benefits and challenges have been for you along your journey towards the education endorsement and pathway. And so I'd like to come back to Julie now, and I'd like to ask you to talk about what you see as the biggest benefits have been for you so far of pursuing the education pathway and endorsement. And if you can tell us if you felt these benefits were worth the investment.
So I think one of the biggest benefits is probably just the satisfaction of knowing that I did something this amazing. Like I was a part of something this big. And obviously, since it's just getting started and I'm one of the first, it just makes me feel even more accomplished. Not to mention the fact that it's kind of like a unique experience. Like not many people can really say that they've done this so far. So that kind of makes me feel like I stand out a little bit more. But I feel like it was completely worth it. The classes really weren't that bad in general, and I actually enjoyed them.
Great. Yeah, you are a leader. You're the first. Thank you for blazing that trail. That's really amazing. How about Olivia? Will you please tell us what you see as the biggest benefits and if you think those benefits were worth the investment?
Sure, yeah. So I feel as if this pathway has given me a lot of confidence. I know going into high school, a lot of people are scared and they might be scared of college in general, because I feel like going into high school, it's all like, oh, this is preparing you for college. This is preparing you, they talk about that all the time. And all these experiences also have shaped me into the teacher I want to be. I've had all these experiences and they've shown me what kind of teacher I want to be, specifically a special ed teacher, but not just that, just they've shown me the type of connection I want to build with students, because I know that's very important in education. It's not just about, oh, let's learn this equation, let's learn this reading. It's about making a connection with students. And I think that's shown me that that's what you need to do first before you can make a real impact on students. And I would definitely think that I don't regret going into this program at all. It's amazing and it's benefited me.
Well, I see you've already picked up on the main ideas, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Janet, can you tell us a little bit more about what you see as the benefits of the pathway and if you feel like those benefits have been worth your investment?
Yes, I think the biggest benefit I've had, I think you can always take a class on education, but the fact that the ed pathway offers that we can do internships and student teaching outside of what we're already being taught, I think that's a really good experience, because not everyone has that experience to be able to go out and be hands-on with the students and with other teachers and learn beside already an experienced teacher.
Thank you. Yes, education as the preparation for life. Thank you. So I'd like to switch it up now, and I'm going to ask Kennedy a question. So Kennedy, what do you see as your greatest challenge in preparing for your post-secondary work? And can you think of anything that would have helped to eliminate those challenges?
Just knowing what was right for me. Going into it, I wasn't really sure if I wanted elementary education or post or secondary education, or what subject if I wanted secondary. But hearing their experiences, I know that if I would have had more like observation and more internship way before I was a sophomore in college, I could have chose those things before I got to where I was. I know I didn't choose until my sophomore year of college whether I wanted elementary or secondary. Whereas if I could have taken those steps in high school, I would have been able to go into college with a better mindset of what classes to take and where to focus my time instead of taking more classes than I needed. I ended up with way more classes than I ever needed to take, where I could have been a lot more focused if I had this pathway.
Sure, that could have saved you a lot of money and time. You could have been out there filling some of that teacher shortage we're experiencing already.
Correct.
Thank you for sharing that so much. I'm going to segue back to Julie now, and I'm going to ask you if you would please talk about what you see as your greatest challenge has been in pursuing the education pathway or endorsement.
I think my biggest challenge was adapting to the college coursework, mostly because obviously I was still in high school and this was my senior year. I did have a lot of my plate at the time, but the professor was so nice and he made sure all of us were super comfortable in the class and made sure that we were able to keep up with the coursework. Plus our teachers that were facilitating the pathway at my high school, they were also keeping up with us and making sure that we were completing the work. So it was difficult at first, but in the end, it got a lot easier.
Thank you for sharing that. Olivia, what do you see has been the biggest challenge that you're struggling with right now?
I would definitely say the same thing. I took my first college class junior year, so the coursework was definitely harder and a little more. But I know my teachers have given me a lot of resources. They've guided me through like the websites, and they've given. I know we are given like one of my courses is through EIU, so we're given the whole library online from EIU, so that's been very helpful as well. But I would say the coursework, just like the changes through high school coursework, would be the most difficult part.
Thank you for sharing that so much. Janet, what's the challenge that you perceive along the pathway?
Honestly, I think I'd have to go with my confidence. I think as like a public speaker, just having to use my voice. I think I've just maybe not done such a great job because I think sitting in a room full of students my age, I wouldn't be so confident. I think that's why becoming a teacher for elementary students, I think that's given me a little more confidence in teaching and speaking to other students. So I think that's probably one of my greatest challenges. I think I'm slowly becoming better, but I think that's maybe one of the major things I'd have to work on.
Well, I would like to reinforce that you are definitely developing your confidence in this environment here today, which certainly made me nervous before I came on today. So I appreciate you sharing that personal detail. And, I really do think that is important work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful to you to be here today and for sharing your thoughts and perceptions about the pathway. So I'd like to cycle back to Julie now. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about whether the endorsement made a difference in or helped you be more prepared for your post-secondary coursework? Do you feel like you entered college with a better idea of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, actually, I was debating majors for a while throughout high school, like I said, because I've always kind of considered teaching. Probably like my freshman, sophomore year, I was debating like math education, and then junior, senior year is really when I started to explore English education, which is currently what I am, what my major is. But the endorsement, like the pathway in general, really helped me into the transition into college because I already had a background in college, taking college classes. I'm so sorry, I cannot speak right now. I had a little bit of a background, and this kind of gave me a little bit of a boost. So I knew what I was getting myself into when I came here. And just the transition from like, those classes to these classes has been a lot easier. Plus, I had a lot of experience from my Foundations in Education course because we wrote a lot of essays, which has benefited me a lot as an English major here because I kind of have a little bit better of a background with writing.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about Olivia? Can you speak to your preparation, whether the pathway is helping you become more prepared for your post-secondary work?
Sure, yeah. So right now, even we're talking about EdTPA and the process of that, and we're even writing EdTPA lesson plans. So I think even talking about those have really opened my eyes to like what is important in a lesson plan and kind of connecting back to the students on what we're learning too. That's a topic we're learning right now, but also my pathway has really shown me what type of specific teacher I want to be. Going in freshman year, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I want to be an English high school teacher. Then sophomore year, I was like, ooh, elementary sounds fun. Like I was all over the place. But at the end of the day, like it really, through these opportunities and working with children outside of my classes and in these internships, I really saw that I loved making a connection in my special education classes, and that's now what I want to be. So.
Thank you for telling us that. How about you, Janice? What do you feel like? Do you feel like the pathway is preparing you for your post-secondary work?
Yes, definitely. Of course. I think because our ed pathway offers so many classes like college classes and also dual credit classes with NLU and EIU, we're able to experience what classes in college would be like. So I think that definitely prepares us into transitioning into more college courses.
Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, those hands-on experiences are important for all of us. Humans are experiential hands-on learners, and that's my Montessori plug for the day, I guess. So my next question is for the entire group. And so I think for this, I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to start with Kennedy. So Kennedy, would you please tell us what your future career plans are? And can you tell us if you plan to return to work in or near your home communities and why or why not?
I can, but I'd like to touch on what they said really quick.
Oh,
because
please.
I heard Olivia say the EdTPA and she knows about it in high school. And I thought that was crazy. You might've saw my face. I heard about the EdTPA my senior year of college.
Well,
and that's not a joke. I really was like, my senior year of college, we started talking about it in one of my education classes. We were like, what is this? As history majors, because I'm a social studies education, we were more focused on history throughout my junior and senior year. And then when we got to our like capstone education class, they were like, oh, these are all the things you have to do for the EdTPA. And it was like this big, scary, daunting thing because I had never heard about it before. I had no idea what it was. So the fact that she knows about it in high school, you're going to be set. You're going to be ready.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And
but yes, I'll go back to your question.
Aided in your preparation. No,
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, tell us a little bit about what you're thinking of for your future plans. Tell us if you plan to work or return to work in your home communities and why or why not.
Yes. So for my work plans, like I said, I'm a social studies education major, but this past fall, I actually had an experience at the school I did my student teaching at. They had me teaching K-6 Phi-Ed. So that was like totally different, but I had never gotten to do anything other than in social studies classes in college. So I actually really liked K-6 Phi-Ed. So I'm hoping to find a job in my major at first and then pursue an endorsement in physical education. And then looking way down the road, once I'm not grading papers anymore, I'd like to do a master's in school counseling. But for now, I'm back in Amboy and subbing a lot. So I'm filling those subbing needs and coaching.
Thank you for doing all that hard work and supporting your community. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Julie? Do you plan to return to work in your home community? Can you tell us a little bit about what is guiding your future career decisions?
So I'm not against going and teaching back home. I would like to branch out a little bit and try to go maybe somewhere around like the Naperville, Joliet, Aurora area. But I do want to teach for maybe about 10 years and then possibly look into going back for my master's in administration. And like I said before, I'm an English major, so I'm looking for secondary education.
Wonderful. And I would like to encourage you to continue pursuing that. It definitely pays off in the long run, for sure. How about you, Olivia? What's guiding your decisions about your future career, work placement, and those types of decisions about returning to work in your home community?
So right now I'm actually preparing to interview for the Golden Apple Scholars Program, which if you go through that program at the end, after you graduate college, you are placed into a low income school. And I've always wanted to teach in a CPS school. So kind of close to home because I live in Arlington Heights. But I definitely want to stay around here because right now I work at Northwest Special Recreation Association as a inclusion aide. And I love my clients and they're amazing. And I always want to be working with that program throughout my whole life because I know they have weekend opportunities and stuff like that. So definitely stay around here.
That sounds wonderful. It's great to hear how you're getting involved in your community and what inspires you. Janet, tell us a little bit more about what your future career plans are and where you hope to end up in your future.
Actually, I think I'd really love to continue to stay inside the community and work here. I think the schools surrounding our area are so good that I feel like it'd be such a good opportunity for me to stay in my community. But I think definitely as I become a more experienced teacher, maybe when I'm older, I think I definitely want to maybe even teach. I think my initial thought, actually, I wanted to teach in a third world country. So I think as I become a more experienced teacher and I have like dealt with everything that I need to, I think I'd, as a hobby, I think I'd actually enjoy teaching in a country where an education is like a privilege.
Wow, that is certainly an inspiration. That just gave me a whole body goosebumps feeling. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that global perspective and kind of lifting us out of that local community idea and reminding us that the entire world needs this work. That's really inspirational. Thank you for saying that. So if you've been part of the endorsement and pathway process, do you feel like this is going to lift you up and aid in your future plans? And if you can tell us how, this is a question for anyone in the group now. And has anything else, are there any other external factors that have influenced your decision regarding where you plan to build your future career in education? Maybe Kennedy, if you would be willing to address that first.
Yes. When you're looking for a place to find a job, obviously you want a place that is welcoming. And I know that it's really welcoming when you know the people back home. But when you go into districts you don't know, when they welcome you in just as much as family as if you weren't from there, I know that's really, really spoke to me because I was out of state for a number of years. And all the schools I was in, I was really lucky to have been felt like family. But now that I'm coming back to Amboy, I'm just looking for a place to make me feel like home. And I know Amboy does that because I know the people, but I just want to say to the other girls, don't limit yourself to being at home because a lot of schools want you and they will make you feel like home anywhere.
And schools are like that, right? They're a
Yeah.
community. When I got hired at SOC, and it is continuously said to me by several people that you become part of the family. And that's my experience at everywhere I've ever taught. You just end up building further and further extended families. And it's a wonderful feeling. Thank you for sharing that, Kennedy. How about you, Julie? Tell us a little bit about what's any other external factors that are influencing your decision regarding where you plan to build your future career in education.
Julie, before you finish, Beth, this is your 2-minute warning. I have a couple questions for you too.
Okay, I'll try to talk quickly.
Go ahead, Julie.
There's not really any external factors that are kind of pursuing where I want to possibly teach someday. I'm kind of open to anywhere. I just know that I want to teach.
Thank you for sharing that. Olivia, can you speak to that at all?
I would say the same thing. Like, I definitely want to try out more CPS as I've mentioned, but I'm also really open to going anywhere throughout the country because I would love to experience new cultures, new things. So anywhere I can teach and do what I love is great.
Thank you. And Janet, tell us, where did this inspiration for this global view come from? What are these external factors that are influencing your future thoughts?
I think in middle school, actually, I had a teacher that actually kind of did that. She went to Haiti and she had these amazing experiences that she got to tell us. And I think that's kind of what inspired me. But I also like to point out that I love that Kennedy is reassuring me to like, it's okay to go outside my community. Because honestly, I think that's all I've really known is that I've wanted to teach in my little community. And then maybe as I become a more experienced teacher, go to a different country.
Thank you so much. Janice, did you want me to address the audience questions?
Yes. So for our panelists, the question was, do you have any insights as to what might keep your peers or other students from beginning a pathway? So remember that most of the folks who are listening have just begun to establish an education pathway, but what would keep students or your peers from being part of a pathway?
So maybe Kennedy, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I never had a pathway, so I know that just even hearing their experiences, so maybe just like this, getting the people that have done it successfully to talk to other students. Like we were saying, this panel is doing really well because we're talking about actual experiences that we had. So doing the same thing by taking these students and talking with other students on how great the pathway can be.
Yes, we need that pipeline of mentors, don't we? Peer mentors. How about you, Julie? Anything you'd like to add to that?
I feel like intimidation in general and just like being scared of what could possibly come out of it is a key factor. I've also noticed a lot of students are not the most hardworking, I'll say, where they kind of look at this as like, oh, that's too much work. I really don't want to do it. And they just kind of completely pass on it.
Thank you so much. Janet, would you like to add to the conversation?
I think some students aren't even aware that we have these incredible opportunities that are pathways. I've spoken to many of my peers where they don't really focus their classes or how they pick their classes based on a pathway. And I ask them, I think they just really aren't aware of all the difference. It's not just education either. There's many different pathways that you can choose from, and being able to do that still in high school, I think that's such a great opportunity to know your interests beforehand before going to college.
Thank you so much. Olivia, do you have any thoughts on how we could remove some of these obstacles?
Yeah, so in my pathway, I know a lot of people think, oh, you definitely should want to be a teacher to go in this pathway. And that's not true. Like if you want to be a counselor, psychologist, or anything in a school or administration, would be these opportunities would help you lead to that. And a lot of people, especially with the preschool program, think, oh, you have to want to be a preschool teacher, that's not how it works at all. Like the preschool program at my school, if you want to be a teacher, just working with people and kids gives you the opportunity to build the confidence and the other skills you'll need if you want to be a counselor or a psychologist or anything in a school. So I think that people assume you have to want to be a specific thing to go into this pathway, but it's not like that at all.
Oh, thank you so much for reminding us that there are many ways to get to the destination. I appreciate that very much. So we're going to wrap up. The final question is for everybody, and it says, what would you tell a student in a 30-second elevator speech who asked you if they should pursue the pathway endorsement or a future in education? So how about you, Kennedy? Would you get us started?
Yep. I would just say that if you have a passion for making relationships is the biggest thing, whether or not you like a certain subject, or if you like kids, or everyone always says when they go into education, oh, I like kids. Well, that's not always a thing, but having a passion for making relationships and building that family bond and just being the teacher you needed being growing up. Just thinking, I need that teacher. Trying to be the teacher that you needed is really big.
Thank you so much. Julie.
Kind of going off of what Kennedy said about be the teacher that you always wanted when you were younger, I feel like that's very influential, and that would kind of inspire the kids into doing this. Like, kind of like telling them, you should do this just because. I'm sorry, I can't think right now. I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I totally understand. You have already said so many wonderful things. Thank you so much. Olivia, what would you say to a student in a 30-second elevator speech to encourage them to join in?
I would definitely say that education is not just focusing on the content and learning. It's also about inspiring other people and pushing people to figure out what their niche is. And also you can take passions outside of education and put them into teaching. Like I know I love English and I love reading and writing, so I could definitely put that into a lesson I have. Or I love tennis, so I can definitely teach people or encourage people to try out for tennis. Like it's much more than learning about Shakespeare or learning about something. It's much more about putting your passion and helping other people find their passions as well. And I just love that part of education.
You guys are amazing. Janet, would you please tell us how you would inspire a student who inquired with you?
I think very similar. I'd ask if they were passionate, because I know from experience that there's many teachers who just teach because it's a job and not because they're passionate or because they want to teach. I think those teachers actually excel and have greater relationship with those students. So I feel like if you see yourself in the future having such great relationship with your students and being able to relate to them and help them get to where they need to be, I think if that's the pathway for you, I think that's great. And I think that's what sort of motivates them.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing a lot about social and emotional learning and relationships and inspiration, and that is certainly lifting me up this morning. And so I just am so grateful to all of our student panelists and the summit organizers for being responsive today and sharing your insights and wisdom along your different journeys. Julie, Kennedy, Janet, and Olivia, it's wonderful to meet you. Janice, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I really appreciate it. The summit is such a great opportunity, and I hope that you ask me back again. I have to go now teach my next class.
Well, I want to thank Beth for leading this roundtable, and for each of our students for participating. It's sometimes as educators, we think we know what students need and what they want, and we plan that way, but it's great to hear from you. And it's really been inspiring to hear about the experiences that you've had that have led you into education. So if you're looking for a place, the Sauk Valley area is a great place to teach. Just saying, for those of you who aren't from the area, don't overlook the little guy either. So thanks, ladies. I'll send you a follow-up email soon. Thanks for being there. Angie, we need to have another giveaway. We have another series of curriculum from Tony to give away.
Yes, Kennedy Dingus. I want you to unmute yourself and pick a number 1 through 67.
11.
11. That is Kelly Schaefer from Rock Falls High School. So Kelly, if you're on the call, you are the winner of our giveaway.
Great. All right. So it's time to move into breakout rooms. Here's how that's going to work, I hope. If you are interested in going to the dual credit breakout, that's going to be breakout room 1. Making the most of career explorations is breakout room number 2, and middle school is the breakout room number 3. You can see those listed on the screen. You can click on whichever breakout room you want right now, breakout B1, B2, B3, and that should lead you into the breakout. Is that right?
Actually, no. I need to open up those breakout rooms.
Oh, so talk amongst yourselves. And sorry.
So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. You are going to choose which breakout. I'll put those back up on the screen here in just a minute. You will choose which breakout room you want to go to. It will put you into that room. I will close the rooms at the end of our designated time for round 1, which will kick you back into the main room, where you will see another breakout schedule up, and I will reopen the rooms for breakout number 2. All right. And Janice, we are in our breakout rooms for this first session until when?
Until 11:05.
All right, friends, don't worry. If you cannot get into a breakout room, we will slot you in there, but I'm opening up the 3 rooms, and you may choose which one you would like to go to.
Angie, for some reason, it's not letting me choose. I would like to go to breakout room 2. Can you put me in there? I keep clicking, but for some reason, my computer, I don't know if it's maybe I need to update Zoom or something, but it's not letting me go.
Miss Amy, I can do that for you. Breakout
Thank
2?
you. Yep.
All right, here you go. If anyone else is having technical difficulties, let me know and I will place you into a room.
Can you place me in the B1?
Okay, who's this talking?
John Heiser.
Oh, B1.
Can you put Jerry Dempsey in breakout room 3?
Oh, I most assuredly can, Miss Jerry.
Thanks, hon.
Yep.
Angie, I don't think anybody can here. Can I go to breakout 1?
Yes.
Okay. Angie, I don't think anybody could get into the breakout rooms by clicking on it.
Actually, I've got most of the people who are in them already.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not working for me, so put me in 2, please.
Okay, can do. Yep.
Hi, Angie. This is Nikki Smith. I can't get in. I'd like to be in 3.
All right. There you go.
Thanks.
Angie, this is Janet. Could I go to 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Deb Endress would like to go to 2.
Can do.
Angie, I'd like to go to B1, Jennifer.
Okay. Here you go.
Angie, this is Sarah Partington. Can you also put me in breakout 1?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Daryl, how about you? 3? Keith? 1? How about you, Aaron? 3? Okay. Candace? 1. I'm seeing a 1. Okay. Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann wants to go to 3. I love how we're doing this. How about Jenny Kirchner?
C3.
You want to go to 3?
Yeah.
Amber, 3.
3.
Toby Luxton, 2, please.
Sure. Kelly, how about you? 2. Greg, 2. Jennifer Stevenson, 1. Let's see who's left. Miranda.
2, please.
Very good. Toby, or did you make it okay?
I don't believe it sent me there yet. I'm not
Okay.
seeing it
Tell me
anyway.
one more time. What
Breakout number 2, please.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. And
Okay.
Kieran.
I'm going to stay here and read my notes for my session, I think.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.